All right, folks, hello and welcome back to Online English Class. Hope you guys are doing well today. Today we are going to continue discussing the focus points that your quarter 4 essay is going to be evaluated according to. Before we get into that process, however, let's talk through the top of the week announcements. First and foremost, make sure that when you have completed your work for the semester that you return your books to my room. Second, make sure that you are accomplishing your discussion grade procedure on a daily basis until the videos come to an end. Our last video will be tomorrow. Okay, so Friday you will simply be invited to turn your essay in on May 22nd. There will be no video. Thursday we'll have our last check-in video and a few tributes. Okay. Beyond that, you want to make sure that you know that your final assignment is your quarter 4 essay, and that can be turned in at any point throughout the course of this week. Do not forget about this, and please do not turn this in late. If you turn it in late, then obviously you will incur a late penalty. Okay. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and turn our attention back to the prompt. All right, so up to this point, we've discussed a number of different focus points that your essay is going to be evaluated according to. These are points of composition that you need to have mastered by the end of 10th grade and that I'm going to be expecting you to express your mastery of and grading your mastery of through the course of this the grading process for this essay. Okay, so the first area of good writing, all right, that you need to have mastered is the ability to work through a process when you are writing. Writing is a thing that requires a process. There's a process by which you should go about writing, just like there's a process that you should go about building a bridge, or a process that you should go about solving a certain kind of math problem. There is a process by which you ought to go through to edit and write your essay, okay? And the first step in that process is really important, significant step in that process, because if you don't do this well, then the rest of the process is kind of screwed up, right? And that is generating ideas about the prompt, understanding what you're being asked to do and how you are being asked to do it, right? How long your essay should be, whether or not you need outside resources, what the formatting for your essay should be, what style rules that you should follow in the course of your essay. All of those are aspects of generating ideas about the prompt. So you need to know what your central claim ought to do, what your essay as a whole ought to do, and also how your essay should go about accomplishing that task. All right. So once you have an understanding of what you are supposed to do, you can actually get into the process of what? Of actually doing it, right? And the first step of actually doing it is developing a central claim. All right. And if you want to develop an excellent central claim, then you need to develop your central claim into a thesis statement that is properly placed, clearly stated, and defensible. Okay, so we already looked at an example of that with respect to this prompt. This is an evaluation, a canon evaluation. Is a work really worthy of admiration and study? You are going to evaluate a work and develop an argument defending or refuting the value of one of the texts that we've read and studied together. Okay, this student wrote about Frankenstein and the wisdom that Frankenstein has to offer. In other words, it's worth studying, it's worth admiring, because among other things, it helps expose students to some wisdom that will actually improve their lives, that will improve their internal lives and deepen their understanding of themselves and what it means to pursue the blessed life. Okay, so that thesis statement is properly placed at the end of the first paragraph. It is clearly stated and it is defensible. Okay, we've already discussed that. Then we discussed yesterday the process of supporting that central claim, right? Which is the next phase of the writing and editing process. Gathering evidence and then organizing that evidence into a logical progression of body paragraphs that support the assertion made in the thesis. If you aren't doing that, then you don't have a reasonable essay. You don't have a logical line of reasoning, all right? So right? We discussed the body paragraphs that should have topic sentences, evidence, and commentary, and also those larger body paragraphs should be knit together in an organizational pattern that supports that thesis. All right. Finally, today we're going to talk about some more technical issues of writing. All right, and we're not going to have this is not going to take very long. The first thing we're going to look at is formatting and citing in-text quotations in MLA style. So is the student following the guidelines for citing text and formatting those citations in MLA style? Okay, that is also something that you are going to be expected to do, setting your paper up in MLA style. Okay, so is this paper in MLA style? Well, this is, although it needs to be what? Double spaced. How do I double space it? I would just select all right, and then I would go to my spacing here. Right now it's single. I would turn it on to double, and now it looks exactly as it should. Okay, so for the sake of this document, which I'm going to use in future classes, I'm going to flip it back to single, but your essay should be in double. All right, it's got a student name, it's got the class that the student's in, it's got the teacher that the student is taught by, and it's got the date that the essay is due. All right, beyond that, right, it's got a title. The title is centered. It's in 12-point Times New Roman font. It's not bigger than the other areas of text. Notice, it doesn't look like that, right? Rather, it looks 12-point font, no bolded, but the title of the novel, Frankenstein, because it's a long work, is italicized, okay? So that's that little I right here. It's italicized. Now, there's something wrong with this first page in terms of MLA style. It does not have a header, okay? So I go to my document options, and this is just for pages, and I've got this option to click on, turn on a header here. I click on the header. Now I can put a header in my document as a whole, and I'm going to write my last name up in this top right-hand corner, all right? And then I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to insert a page number. I'm going to put a space between my last name and the page number, and then for continuity's sake, I'm going to go back to my formatting and change it out of Havelteca into Times New Roman. So now everything is Times New Roman, everything is 12-point, and everything is uniform. All right, now you see in my header, it applies it to every aspect of the text, okay? Now, in terms of quoting from the text, all right, and formatting my citations, right? Here's an example of a quotation from Chapter 5. Notice that Chapter 5 is in quotes. Why? Because it is a part of the larger work. The large work is italicized. The smaller portion of that larger work is put in quotation marks. All right, in Chapter 5, Victor explains that though he had attempted to make the creature, quote, beautiful, all right, so that's Shelley's words. I wanted to emphasize that word, so I put it in quotations to emphasize that it's in the novel, all right, something that Victor actually said. I'm not paraphrasing here or summarizing. I'm using the exact words. Comma, the luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast, end quote. Contrast with what? I finished the thought in order to keep things continuous and logical. A more horrid contrast with the creature's nearly translucent skin and gigantic frame. All right. Now, at the end of this sentence, I have a parenthetical citation. All right, I've got Shelley's last name. Why do I have Shelley's last name here? Because I haven't attributed the quote in the sentence to Shelley. So we need to know that these quotations come from who? They come from Shelley. And who's Shelley? Well, I can use my in-text works cited page in order to clarify. And all this needs to say is works cited, centered. Don't worry about these. You don't have this analysis of focus point section. So let's just enter this down onto a whole new page so you don't even think about that, right? You got your works cited page. Who's Shelley? Oh, it's Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft Godwin, who wrote Frankenstein, and it's been published by Dover Publications in 1994. Okay, so that's who Shelley is. Okay, I got it. It's Mary Shelley. So this is a quote from where? From Frankenstein, the novel. All right, perfect. Okay, and where does this quote come from? Page 35 of what edition of the book? Oh, the Dover Publication 1994 book. All right, or edition of the book. So if I pull that book out and go to page 35, I should be able to very easily find this quotation, which I indeed can. Okay, so That's the logic of MLA formatting. It's supposed to help your reader understand where you've got what you are quoting from, where you got it, and how to access it if they needed to access it. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're following those basic instructions for your citations throughout the course of your essay. Okay, so here's another example, right? We've got a quotation, a direct quotation from the novel where the student simply emphasizes the word silent. Okay, he remains, quote, silent. This is in the trial of Justine where he remains silent. And this comes from page 51. Okay, so this refers us to this important scene of the novel. It emphasizes that important word that helps characterize Frankenstein and illustrate sort of his ongoing rejection of his unacknowledged self. He's silent about it. He does not confess it. He does not repent of it. And so, right, here, Shelley's name is not attributed, right? Frankenstein rather is, but Shelley created Frankenstein. So who gets the credit for writing these words that I'm quoting? Well, Shelley does. And where do they come from? Page 51. Where's the period go? After the quotation is over. Why? Because this information should be included in what? In this sentence, all right? Now, any other time, the period would go directly after the sentence, all right? But do not do that. All right, this is not a sentence in and of its own. All right, if you put a period here and then another period here, it means this is a whole sentence. Is that true? No, that's a fragment. That's illogical. Now, if you put the period here and take away this period, what's that mean? That means this is a part of this sentence. Is that true? No, that's illogical. So where should the period go? Well, it should go here. Why? Because this information refers to where this came from. It's a part of this sentence. Okay, so make sure that your quotations are properly formatted in that sense. Okay, now the next area of the text is related but not the same. And that is effectively introducing from the quotations from the text that are grammatically correct and coherent. So not just quotations that are according to MLA style, all right? So not just writing in accordance with MLA style, but also introducing quotations from the text strategically in ways that are grammatically correct and coherent. The word coherent means clear, easy to understand. Let me show you an example. All right, so let's go to this bolded sentence here. All right, this first paragraph discusses what the creature means to Victor and what wisdom we can glean from watching Victor attempt to repress his fears and insecurities in the creature. Okay, so the topic sentence. The creature is an embodiment of Victor's repressed fears and insecurities, which makes Frankenstein horrified of the creature for the rest of his life. In chapter 5, now if you remember your novel, you'll know that chapter 5 is the chapter in which Victor brings the creature to life. And this comes from the beginning of chapter 5. Victor explains that though he had attempted to make the creature, quote, beautiful, comma, end quote. All right, now, instead of citing the entire sentence in which Victor says, I had selected his appearances as beautiful, beautiful exclamation mark, great God exclamation mark, he was essentially, goes on to say, anything other than beautiful, right? Instead of saying all that, I have written my own sentence that leads to the important quotation or the important word that I want to emphasize, the word beautiful. Now that word is going to come, that word is going to be important here later for the writer as the writer analyzes the significance of this word choice a little bit more in their commentary. Okay, now because this sentence, all right, is a subordinate clause, Victor explains that though he had attempted to make the creature beautiful, comma, end quote, the luxuriances, in other words, his attempts to make him beautiful only formed a more horrid contrast. Why do I end the quote here? Is it because that was the end of the sentence? No. I end the quote here because I'm stopping quoting from Shelley and I'm going to complete the thought on my own. Do I put a comma here? No. Why? Because this text bleeds directly into me finishing the thought, right? So it doesn't need a comma. We need a comma here because this sentence is structured as in the complex form. It's got a subordinate clause, and the comma simply separates the subordinate clause from the independent clause that finishes the thought. Okay, so you see how I'm integrating the quotations into existing sentences to emphasize the clarity of what I want to emphasize, all right, and also to maintain grammatical coherency. The luxuriance is only formed a more hard contrast, end quote, with the creature's nearly translucent skin and gigantic frame. Now I've got my citation. Then I move into an analysis of the significance of that quotation, as reflected in Frankenstein's attempts to make the creature beautiful, again, emphasizing that word, beautiful. Victor attempts to hide his inner turmoil beneath an exterior skin that is beautiful and symmetrical. Testimonies of the well-ordered life of the creature's creator. In other words, Victor attempts to make the creature beautiful because he is trying to mask or put a front on that hides his inner turmoil, very much like the creature is externally beautiful. He selected his attributes as beautiful. Okay, but all of Victor's attempts to beautify the creature only heighten the horror of what is hidden just beneath the creature's skin. Inner truth. This inner truth has come to life and faces him and is too much for Frankenstein to bear. So here the student is really effectively integrated a quotation into an existing sentence, and then, right, using the emphasis that the quotations offer, right, using those that emphasize those concepts. Then the student goes back to those concepts and analyzes them with respect to Victor's characterization. By the end of the paragraph, we come to the conclusion of what wisdom we can glean from watching Victor behave in this way. Okay? So, another example here of just one word integrated into a larger quotation. Now, can you quote whole sentences? Yeah, you could quote whole paragraphs. I don't recommend it, but you can. But what I'm saying is it's oftentimes more helpful just to quote specific words and to integrate those quotations into sentences that you've written that make sense. Okay, so Frankenstein knows this, but he does not say who committed the murder, as he remains, quote, important word, silent, because he does not acknowledge his evil self embodied by the monster. He refuses to sacrifice his ego, even if it means another person will live or die. Okay, so here the student has essentially shown me that they know how to format and cite quotes in MLA style, and also, importantly, they know how to introduce quotations from the text that are grammatically correct and coherent. Okay, so that is the last focus points that I'm going to be evaluating your essay according to. Obviously, the more general concerns are is it readable, your clarity of writing score, your claim, your development, your organizational pattern, the fact of whether or not it has followed the overarching writing and editing process, or whether or not it looks like a rough draft. Those are all going to be the things that I use to evaluate the quality of your essay and give you your final score. Okay, so make sure that you, if you check off every single one of these focus points and you've made sure that your essay adheres to all of this content, then your grade should be quite good if, all right, you have answered this question diligently. All right, if your composition is good and it's thoughtful, then your grade should be excellent. Okay. Tomorrow, we'll tune in for our last class. It'll be a quick checkup just to reiterate the only remaining task that you have to do and to describe to you basically the final things that you need to take care of and to wish you a very merry summer. Okay, but beyond that, this is it for English-related content, composition-related content. It has been a delight teaching you guys, and I look forward to honoring you tomorrow with some tributes to your excellent work throughout the course of this year. Have an excellent day.